Welcome back to the next team that we're reviewing for the Fantasy 2024 season. That is the Cincinnati Bengals. A kind of obviously disappointing for them last year just because Joe Burrow was injured to start the year, and then he got injured. Once he started getting better, he got injured. They were still competitive. I think they still finished over 500. I think that whole division finished above 500, the AFC North. With Jake Browning. So, we're expecting big things from the Bengals this year, and it starts with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow heading into, what is this, year 5, I think, already, which is kind of crazy because he's missed a huge part of 2 of those seasons, but still really, really good. He's still going pretty high in drafts. He's going 59th overall. Keep in mind, this is July 16th when we're recording this, so you're probably seeing this in, end of July, early August, but things could have changed. Going in round 5 as the QB7, and then you see his points per game there, 2021. He was 10th in points per game for quarterbacks. 2022, his best year. He was 4th per game for quarterbacks, averaging over 21.5 points. And then last year, you got to kind of divide up when he started to get healthy with that calf injury, and he was much better around week 5 or so, I believe. So, Joe Burrow, Dad, I think he could possibly win the MVP. He could be, if he's going to win the MVP, it could be around your 5th, 6th year of playing or so. But I am a little nervous about drafting him round 5. Where are you at with Joe Burrow? Do you want to take him in round 5, or do you prefer someone else like a CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, or Jordan Love?
I like Burrow. I like his attitude. It's unfortunate. You go back rookie year, his knee, then he had a wrist, and last year, and the calf, and appendicitis. It just kind of, but I like his attitude, man. I like, and I just, I think he's one of the top quarterbacks. Those 3 guys that you listed, I think Jordan Love would be the only one I would consider. And he only really had we'll call it a half a season or 3/4 of a season that was really good. So we expect him to get better and stuff like that. But back to Burrow, I like Joe Burrow, man. And I just, one of the good things that came out of last year is Cincinnati found themselves a pretty decent backup quarterback. But, we're not here to talk about backups and stuff like that, but it's something to consider if you ever have to get in that category. But Joe Burrow, I'll take him in the 5th round.
Yeah. I guess my only fear about these guys is that these guys that don't really run, which Joe Burrow doesn't. He's not a statue, but his best year is 250 yards. So he's maybe going to give you 10 to 12 yards on the ground, or 10 to 15 yards on the ground. On average. So, you could get a situation like Patrick Mahomes last year, who had a down year because he didn't throw touchdowns, essentially. Like, you're never going to get that with Lamar Jackson because he's always going to run and give you points. It doesn't matter, who he's throwing the ball to. He's always going to get points on the ground. Whereas Joe Burrow, if Jamar Chase gets hurt or T. Higgins gets hurt, it could affect Joe Burrow, right? So that's the concern, but he showed you what he's capable of. Again, he had back-to-back years of 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns, and that's kind of where you need to be one of those top 7 guys by passing the ball. So, yeah, I get it. He has really good weapons. He's throwing the ball to, and all of that. I'm just a little bit worried about, what if he throws 30 touchdowns instead of 35? Which could definitely happen for whatever reason. They have a down touchdown year. They have, they rush the ball in more with rushing touchdowns and things like that. So you do see his his numbers, like at the beginning of the year, the first 4 games, he was terrible. And then his last 5 games, or, the 4 games, weeks 5 through 10, so 5 games, he was much better. Yeah, much, much better. He averaged, looks like he averaged about 300 yards passing a game and about 2.5 touchdowns or so. So yeah, he was much better during that time. But yeah, I mean, Jake Browning is there. I don't buy into the whole injury prone thing. I see that thing thrown around with Joe Burrow a lot. Do you buy into this injury prone thing?
It just, I don't know. Injury prone, I don't know. Fifth year. So he's had, other than the knee his rookie year and then the wrist last year, I don't know. So that's 2 out of 4 years, right, that he's playing. But there's always something lingering, or, the calf was in training camp and appendicitis was in training camp. So I don't know. We're close. We're on the edge of saying that, but I don't think right now we are.
Yeah, I don't buy into it. Just because 2020 he got his knee hit by a defender because they couldn't block for him. Like, what are you supposed to do when someone drives a helmet into your knee, And then last year, the calf and then a freak wrist injury. Like, he played full seasons in 2021 and 2022. So yeah, I don't really buy it. I think it's a little overblown in my opinion. But the running backs are interesting here. Jake Browning is the backup quarterback, but you're not going to be drafting him in redraft. So Zach Moss is their first running back here, coming over from the Colts. And he was really good for the Colts when he took over for Jonathan Taylor. He was really, really good. I'm trying to go back and see exactly how good he was. But, he averaged 11.2 points per game last year. And that includes all the games when Jonathan Taylor came back. But you look at from weeks 2 to 6, or weeks 2 to 2, 3, 4, and 5, he was getting 18 plus carries, rushing the ball he had a couple games of 122, 165 rushing yards, like a couple touchdowns in there. So he was really good. I guess he projects to be their lead back, but how we're drafting him, he's 84th overall, round 7, RB 25. So we're potentially getting the lead running back for Cincinnati, but he's not even really being drafted as an RB2, which is funny, right? Like, and I understand there's some concern. People like Chase Brown, who we're going to talk about, but like, I'm kind of in on this draft, like for Zach Moss in round 7, like considering you're getting a starting running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Just look at what Joe Mixon was doing all those years with them. Yeah. And you just look at who's going around Zach Moss. You have, Jalen Warren, who's the running back 2 for Pittsburgh. Jonathan Brooks, a rookie coming out off an ACL. Tony Pollard, is he kind of in a 50-50 split? Raheem Mostert, who I think is good value. Javonte Williams, there's rumors he might get cut, So, like, you look at the guys going after Zach Moss, and he's kind of like the last guy you can get who should be the lead guy. So do you think he is the lead guy, Dad? Like 65 to 70% of the snaps and majority of the carries?
Man, is he going to replace Joe Mixon? Oh boy, that's tough. That's tough to put a finger on, because I do think Chase Brown is going to be part of the answer here. So, I don't know. It's just I don't see Zach Moss replacing Joe Mixon, I guess. That's what I'm trying to process. And, that's kind of fair to say. I think Chase Brown, he started to show up at near the end of the season last year. And I don't know, is it going to be split backfield, So yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with where Zach Moss, being drafted around the same place where Raheem Mostert is.
Yeah, well, that's kind of crazy. Like people.
Yeah, that seems a little off.
But he's basically in that tier. So you have right before him, you have guys like David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, James Conner, guys who we're pretty confident we know what we're going to get. And then right after him, you have like the guys who are potentially in split backfields in Jalen Warren, Tony Pollard, Javonte Williams, Devin Singletary. We're not sure what's going to happen there. Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, guys like that. So he's kind of right in the middle of those two. I agree about Mostert, but that's for when we discuss Miami. It's just, I don't know, like this iteration of the Bengals, right? This iteration of the Bengals, like under Joe Burrow and with Zach Taylor as the head coach, has only ever used Mixon, really. Like they've brought in other guys to kind of spell him. But like it's been, like P. Ryan and Chase Brown a little bit last year. But you look at the snap percentages, it's Mixon damn near 70% every game. And they take him out on third downs, Mixon, yet he still catches 50 balls a game. Like he's one of the most targeted running backs on first and second down. And I think that's potentially because of Burrow more than anything, not necessarily because of Mixon. And then you look at Mixon, it's not like he was a super efficient player. Like the dude probably should have been better, to be honest, than what he did. He was really good and he's consistent and, he's been, like a top 5 running back the last 3 years. But it's mostly just because of volume. Like he averaged 4.1, 3.9, 4.1, 4.0 yards per attempt, right? He got 50 catches a game, essentially. It's not like he scored a bunch of touchdowns. His 2021 he did, but 2022 and 2023, 9 and 12. 12 is really good. But I don't know. It's just it's not like he's replacing this elite, super efficient guy. So if they do decide to just give him 250 touches and 40 catches, Zach Moss is going to be really good for a good offensive team, right? But you're just more worried about, you're not convinced that's what they're going to do. It's going to be more 60-40 than 70-30 or something. Yeah. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I think so. So, to me, it kind of feels like the Cincinnati running back situation. We're still waiting to see who's going to be the lead guy.
Yeah.
Is it Chase Brown? Is it Zach Moss? We know Zach Moss, when they give him the ball a lot, he gets a lot of carries and a lot of touches. He's not too bad,
Yeah.
And he doesn't stink or anything like that. So, but there's another guy right behind him who in college was a big time bell cow running back, the University of Illinois. But I know so this is only his second year, so it's just remains to be seen. Just buyer beware type stuff.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get a little bit clearer of an answer, but and I understand not wanting to buy into Zach Moss, the former 3rd round pick who didn't make it with Buffalo, and they moved on from him in the middle of his 3rd season, and they spent a 3rd round pick on him, which basically means like, we think you suck, we don't even want you as a backup. And then he comes onto the scene and he's awesome for those games that, Jonathan Taylor was out. But I get it. I get not wanting to buy into him a little bit. It's something that came from Hard Knocks that I heard. I haven't watched it, but I think the Giants, when they're talking about Zach Moss came up maybe during free agency or something, and they talked about his pass blocking ability and how he's a really good pass blocker. And that's gonna get him on the field. If Chase Brown can't pass block, Chase Brown's gonna be nothing but all right, let me give you a breather, Zach Moss.
Yeah,
right?
You're absolutely 100% right. So
yeah, if he can pass block, he's gonna definitely be the main guy. So then let me ask you, Chase Brown, who I don't have a graphic for him, but he started to come on last year as a very explosive player. Don't know if he can be the bell cow he was in college, but I don't know if he, profiles as one in the NFL. Had some games where he looked good, especially catching the ball. 3 catches, 80 yards in one game, stuff like that. So he's going in round 10 currently, 117th overall. So round 10 is not dart throw. You know, when you get to round 13, 14, you're kind of throwing darts and hoping you hit. Round 10 is kind of like one of the top players on your bench. Are you comfortable with that? Round 10 for Chase Brown?
Yeah, that might be a little early, you know.
Yeah.
You know, for somebody who, you know, that we don't have. Do you have any names of players that are being drafted around him that I don't know if you have that available. I don't want to
running backs. No, you're fine. Running backs, you know, you're kind of in that fringe. You know, round 10 it's slightly too early for just pure handcuffs, right? You want to take those a little bit later. These are guys that we expect to maybe produce. Well, Nick Chubb, we don't know yet, so we'll leave him out. Ezekiel Elliott, like we expect him to get a lot of carries for Dallas, I think. Whether it's good or not, he's going to get a lot of touches. Gus Edwards is going to be maybe the lead guy for the Chargers, you know. And then you start getting into more of the handcuffs like Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Ty Chandler, Marshawn Lloyd. So, and right before him, it's guys like Trey Benson, Jerome Ford, Blake Corum. So it's kind of a mix of like, you know, guys that we expect to give you something versus guys that are just handcuffs. So I don't know if you feel that's appropriate, or do you think it's maybe one round too early on Chase Brown?
Yeah, it might be a little early, I think, you know, we'd like to see it first before you start, you know, go shopping for the groceries. We want to know what we're buying is good. And that's the same thing, you know, with Chase Brown. So, you know, the potential's there and stuff like that. And we just don't know. So, but there is running backs. There is young running backs you can take a chance on, and they do show up. The Rams running back, Kyrie Williams last year.
Kyrie, yeah.
We didn't know that he knew he was okay, you know, and stuff like that. But I mean,
off the top of your head, who? And I don't even know this. I'm looking it up now. Who was second in carries for the Bengals in 2023? So, okay, sorry. Who was behind
Chris Evans?
Well, it was Chase Brown, but like besides, because Chase, what I'm getting at here is Chase Brown for the first from weeks 1 to 11 had 2 carries. He had 2 carries in the first 11 weeks, right? So who was that other running back? Chris Evans is a good guess. It was basically no one. It was the answer, but it was Travion Williams and Chris Evans. I don't know who was going on the field more there. I think maybe Travion Williams, maybe Chris Evans. But my point being is like Chase Brown wasn't even like being used the first 11 weeks of the season last year. It's, you know, it's like essentially saying he couldn't beat out Travion Williams or Chris Evans, maybe. So, you know, it was a rookie. Maybe they just wanted to bring him on slowly, but I do think that's a little interesting. Like, why didn't they try and mix him in a little bit earlier, I guess, before week 13, essentially?
I thought there was an injury problem, but I don't know. I guess I wondered that myself, but
yeah, so it showed him he missed week 1. He was active weeks 2 through 6. That's where he got his 2 carries, and then he was inactive or did not play. He might have got hurt in week 6. I don't know. It says did not play from week 8 to 11. So maybe you're right. In that middle part, he got hurt. That could be the reason. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think I'll take a risk on Zach Moss. It's not going to kill you if he's a bust in round 7. So it's not ideal. But Jamar Chase, I don't want to spend too much time here. You know, he's going as the wide receiver 3 in half PPR. He's awesome, especially when Burrow's there. The only question is how many receivers are you taking before you take Jamar Chase? So just a quick little game here, Dad. Are you taking CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase?
Lamb.
Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase?
Chase.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy or Jamar Chase?
Probably Chase. I like that little caveat there. So.
And then I think only the last one to talk about is Amon-Ra St. Brown for Chase, and I think there's
St. Brown.
Yeah. So right now for half PPR, it's only Lamb and Tyreek. I would take Chase over Jefferson because of the quarterback situation, and I don't hate taking St. Brown over Chase. It's kind of like, do you want consistent production or do you want a little bit more boom bust? But Jamar Chase is awesome. We don't need to spend much time unless there's something you want to say about.
He's got a weird helmet.
Yeah. T. Higgins is an interesting one. 25, still only 25 years old, which is kind of funny. He feels older.
Yeah, feels like he's been around a lot.
Yeah.
Well, this is this his fifth year? No, fourth year.
Fourth year, right?
Fifth year?
No, fifth year. Fifth year,
yeah.
Yeah, because he's on the franchise. So, he's fallen down a little bit. I remember last year he was going like round 3. He's down to round 5, wide receiver 29. You see his numbers there in 2021 and 2022. He was a top 15 wide receiver per game, despite having Jamar Chase there. Last year kind of fell off. You know what's funny with T. Higgins as well is like there's multiple, like 5-6 games over the last 3 years where he left right when the game started, essentially. So that affects his points per game. If you don't play, it doesn't affect it if you're inactive. But if you play a snap and then you leave, that shows up in your points per game. So if you go and kind of take those games out, his points per game when he actually plays a full game is really, really good. But that is part of the concern. He's going to play with the Bengals. Do you like this value now? Because I was never big on T. Higgins in the 3rd round. But T. Higgins in the 5th round as your wide receiver 3 potentially. Are you in on that or are you kind of out on Higgins?
No, I'm in on Higgins. Especially, okay, this is a prove it year. You know, he didn't make a big deal, about being franchise tagged and all the other stuff. And like Ayuk is in the, Brandon Ayuk is in the news every other day. So he just signed his contract and he's going to play out. So if he wants a big money deal, he has to prove it. So, and he has the ability of proving it. The Bengals, they let Tyler Boyd go. So I don't even know who their wide receiver 3 is. So
yeah, we'll talk about that next.
Yeah. So Higgins, Higgins and Chase, that's like Batman and Robin type thing for Joe Burrow. So
yeah, and T. Higgins is explosive. What I generally like if I'm building an ideal like wide receiver room for my fantasy team, I want my 2 studs. My wide receiver 3, if I had to choose between like a Deontay Johnson 12 points a game or a T. Higgins boom bust, can win you weeks, but can also give you weeks of 5 or 6 points, I'm probably going to take that boom bust type of play. So that's just kind of. You mentioned it with Tyler Boyd leaving. By the way, Tyler Boyd last year, 98 targets. So we're talking about 100 targets gone from Tyler Boyd. And don't forget Joe Mixon's targets. Maybe that all goes to Moss and Chase Brown. But, between Burrow and Tyler Boyd, we have 160 targets gone, which is significant. So a lot of that could go to T. Higgins because the wide receiver 3, as of right now, is Jermaine Burton, the rookie from Alabama. So, I'm also in on T. Higgins in round 5. I like that. I just think this offense is going to bounce back and be really good. So
yeah, I think so too. I agree.
Jermaine Burton is slightly interesting just because he does potentially profile to fill Tyler Boyd's role. Now, when we were looking at Jermaine Burton back at Alabama, he was a deep field, down the field kind of guy. His average depth of target was like 21 yards, not his reception, like his average target went 20 yards in the air. So I don't know if he profiles as like a true slot guy in terms of what Tyler Boyd was doing for this team. And for that reason, I'm not 100% convinced that he's just going to be Tyler Boyd. It might be a combination of Jermaine Burton, and then they have a couple other guys that they've been on the team for a while. Trenton Irwin is one of them. Charlie Jones, a rookie last year. It could be a combination of those guys. Like, okay, Burton, we need you out here to stretch the field, and Trenton Irwin or Charlie Jones are going to be more of that over the middle type of player. I just don't know. I'm not saying it's not possible, but if Burton's going to be the Tyler Boyd role, then he deserves to be drafted at the end of fantasy draft. So for Dynasty, I like Burton because I think he can play on the outside. So I think it's interesting when T. Higgins does leave, but I don't know if there's much to say about Burton besides, unless one of these guys get hurt. But take a dart throw if you think he's going to be used as essentially the Tyler Boyd replacement. So, and then the tight end, there's not really much to talk about right now. It's Mike Gesicki, who, has been around the block, but he probably falls into the traditional Bengals tight end of like 500 yards and 50 catches. That's who they had with CJ Uzomah, Hayden Hurst, even last year they had like Tanner Hudson coming on. But that being said, with Boyd gone, and we assume Burton's going to step up, but if he can't, maybe some of that goes to Gesicki. I don't know, but he's going to be a waiver wire guy at best. So I don't know if there's anything else to say. Do you think? Do you have anything else about any of these guys or?
No. It's a productive offense, led by Joe Burrow and stuff like that. We have some no-brainers on who to draft, 2 wide receivers, quarterback, and then there's some other questions to be answered, to be seen. But take a chance on running backs and tight end. I think I'd take a pass. So
yeah. I mean, if he starts producing, you can pick him up off waiver. He's being drafted in round 18. So maybe you draft 18 rounds, but most people don't. So, we'll finish up there and we'll be back alphabetical order. The Cleveland Browns, another orange team in Ohio. So we'll be talking about them in the next video. We will catch you all